Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Elizabeth Gearhart. She is an entrepreneur and podcast and radio show host. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about boosting one's business with podcasting. But before we come to this, let's understand a bit about your own journey so that people can learn a lot from that itself.
Sure. So I started out as a chemist. I have a doctorate in chemistry. My husband started a patent, trademark, and copyright law firm, intellectual property law firm. And I worked with him in his law firm. I did patent drafting. Then I went into the marketing. And we were approached by somebody we had met through networking from iHeartMedia. She had just moved to iHeart and she called me and said, "Why don't you come into New York? I've got a great idea for you and Richard." My husband's name is Richard, to do a radio show. We'll record it. It's not live like this. Um,
Hmm.
and we'll turn it into, at that time, we weren't really thinking about turning it into a podcast. And she had the whole format. Her name's Kenya Gibson. She's now a co-host on the show. So Richard Gearhart, myself, and Kenya Gibson co-host a radio show called Passage to Profit. We started on iHeart in New York on WR 710. And now it's nationally syndicated across the US. So we're on 37 radio stations across the United States. And iHeart made it into a podcast. And we really were focusing on the radio part at first. Then we decided to really focus on the podcast part. And we're in top 3% of podcasts globally now, according to Listen Notes. And we've been working on both ever since. It's an interview style. So we have people come on. We do it in the iHeart studios in Manhattan, which is really fun. And we also do it over Zoom if people can't make it. So we get people from all over the world on our radio show and podcast as well. So, and I've really been digging into the podcasting space a lot. I'm opening my own podcast studio in New Jersey, where we live. And I'm coaching people on podcasts and how to get them started. And I also have a meetup group where we get people from all over the world that come to our meetup group that meets once a month, where we talk about pretty much the fundamentals of podcasting and what you can do to help market your podcast. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right, right. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Now, I want to understand that when you started with that radio show, or we can call it podcast, or the way we want to call it, did it help? Did your presence help the show, or the show's presence help the business? The Gerhardt law, if I understand.
Right. So Gearhart Law is my husband's law firm, but iHeart wanted us to do the show together. So we did it together as co-hosts, and then we brought Kenya in as a co-host. And absolutely did help the law firm get business. And it also helped a lot with publicity and putting us out there. It also helped the law firm get awards for entrepreneurism from different places. So my husband got an award for most entrepreneurial law firm, one of the top entrepreneurial law firms in New Jersey. He also got an award from New Jersey Innovates for the law firm, top 100 innovators in New Jersey. And I think a lot of that is due to having the media presence. It also helped with clients because we interview people on the show. We get one very successful person who's sold a company or two and is worth at least $1 million. And then we get a couple people that are working on their companies. And so we can offer that to the clients of the law firm, and some of them really like it. And it does help people become clients because we say, look, if you don't have to be a client to be on the show, but if you're a client, you get first placement on the show. So it has helped that way. It's also helped, for instance, just recently, I've been posting on LinkedIn a lot now, and somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and wanted to put Richard and myself on an internet TV show in New York. So we did that. And while we were talking to him, we said, I have a legal matter that I need help with. Richard, can you help me with this? So we did get a direct piece of business. And that's happened a few times where we get direct business from people being on the show.
Right, right. So now looking at the podcasting space,
I can't hear you, AJ.
Let me see.
Can you repeat what you just said?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's the problem.
And now you're fading out again.
Give me. Eh, yeah. Are you getting me?
This is perfect. Yes, I can hear you
Okay.
loud and clear.
Okay. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. So, Elizabeth, I want to understand now where podcasting stands as of today. A lot of people say podcasting is on the rise. A lot of businesses also say, should get into it. But uh, as many businesses are not getting into it, but more and more people are getting into the podcast, big podcast guesting side of things. So is it that businesses have not understood the podcast hosting part, but they have understood the podcast guesting part because it is easy to understand and the results are immediate to see? How would you like to explain this scenario, or you differ with it? You can certainly tell me if my assessment is not fully correct.
No, I think that you're absolutely right, AJ. And this is what's happening. If you remember Facebook, I never wanted the law firm to be on Facebook early days because somebody told me they put a picture of their foot on there after they had surgery. And I'm like, that's not a serious place for a business, right? Now businesses are on Facebook. And I think podcasting is going to go through the same evolution. A lot of people are podcasting, but businesses are coming around. And the way that I view podcasting, I know a lot of people want to become popular as podcasters, and that's great. It takes years to do that. Somebody walking in and all of a sudden shooting to the top, that just doesn't happen. So you have to develop it over years. Part of the reason Passage to Profit is in the top 3% is because we've been doing it for 6 years. As far as businesses, what I feel like podcasting is for them is another tool in their digital marketing toolbox. So a lot of businesses have a marketing agency. Gearhart Law has one, and they have targeted marketing. They have, they take care of your website. They do your SEO, all that stuff. But a podcast is another tool there. But a podcast is a very powerful tool, or can be a very powerful tool for business, for a few reasons. One, it reaches an audience you might not reach through your other marketing efforts because there are people that listen to podcasts. And what I think is unique about podcasts is you upload your podcast to one distribution service. So for Passage to Profit, we use Castos. I use Buzzsprout for one of my other podcasts. I use Libsyn for one of my others. Anyway, doesn't matter which one you use to a large degree, but then you upload it once and it goes out to a whole bunch of different podcast platforms. So we upload to Castos. We go to Apple, we go to Spotify. I can't even tell you all the different ones that we go to. And so you take one piece of content and you get it put on all these directories. Why do you want to be on all these directories? One is to get to people, but Google loves that. So the search engines love seeing you in as many places on the internet as they can, because then they know you're real. Right. And if you put your podcast on YouTube, YouTube has YouTube podcasts now. That YouTube is the #2 searched site for information. So that gives you another place to be found by people. And the fact that it's a video makes it very authentic. So people know that you're not an AI bot. They know you're a real person who owns this company. And there are other reasons too, but businesses are starting to come on board. I just actually was at a networking function yesterday, and a businesswoman approached me and wants to start a podcast for her business. And so she's early on. I reached out to her. I said, we need to integrate it with your entire marketing effort. And she wants to do video. She's got just brilliant ideas for it. And we're going to work on getting that so that she sells olive oil, like really high-end olive oil. So it's very visual. So that'll be fun to do.
Right, Elizabeth. So why is it that on a larger scale we are not seeing podcasts from business houses. It's only some of the bigger ones that we sometimes get to hear or see about their podcast, one of here and there, but not, from a on a wider point of view. It's mainly, from creators' point of view, or, or those influencers' point of view, or those, celebrity podcasters' point of view. You see those things, but not from businesses who are normal businesses, who have adapted to podcasting, and then using it as a strong marketing tool, and going to the market and telling them that yes, we do have a podcast and we want you to be a part of it. Why is it not happening? Again, correct me if my perception or understanding is not fully correct.
No, you know what's interesting about what you're saying? You are absolutely correct. I think it's not on their radar screen. I think we're early days yet. I think once more and more businesses do it, you will see what you're talking about. But what's interesting for me is our marketing agency for Gearhart Law, which is an intellectual property law firm, patents, trademarks, copyrights, doesn't have podcasting expertise. So I think part of it is the marketing agencies that these companies are using are not telling them to do a podcast because they don't have the
Okay.
expertise in house. So one of the things I want to do with my business is approach these businesses and say, hey, I can give you white glove, soup to nuts treatment and do a podcast for you. I can even help you write out the scripts. I can help you record it. I can upload it everywhere it needs to go, get it edited, et cetera, et cetera. I think really don't know how to do it because, as you know, AJ, there is a lot to getting a podcast that's high quality that you can put out for the public.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well explained, Elizabeth, on that point. Now, I want to understand one more thing. Then we will wait for that, growth to happen. But one more thing: a few businesses sometimes think that, through this podcast, they might be giving a lot of information free. What about whatever they are doing? So how do they balance this part of giving value, as well as making sure that it is actually not just giving value, but also it's leading to business growth for them? How do you balance that?
Well, what I found is, and this is true for Gearhart Law, is when you explain it to people, what you're doing, you're so specialized. They look at that explanation, and a lot of times they think, yeah, I could probably do that if I spent hours figuring out how, but I don't want to. I should just hire these people. So I don't think you're wrong to give away information. If you really want to do something specific that you feel has a lot of value, you can get paid. You can put it behind a paywall. So you can make it private content that people have to subscribe or pay to hear or see.
Right, right, Elizabeth. Now let's look at the marketing, part of a podcast. One is a marketing done by, lesser mortals like me. That you have a podcast, you try and do whatever you can within your means. One is the marketing by a business-owned podcast. How does a business then market it from a marketing perspective through a marketing team which does not know much about marketing, a podcast marketing? How do they break those shackles? And even if they are able to break it, how do they actually come down to the ground and actually do things about it?
Well, there are a lot of tricks to marketing a podcast. We can have a whole day session about how you market a podcast. One thing that podcasters will say is if you want to advertise your podcast, you should advertise it where your customers are. So a lot of people are big proponents of advertising on other podcasts to get people to listen to your podcast. There also, every podcast has a cover. So there's cover art, and that has to be appealing to people. That's where you start. I tell people your marketing starts before you even start your podcast, because you have to start with your cover art and make sure it catches people's eyes. And then you have to know what your audience is going to want to hear about. And in the first 30 seconds, you have to have a hook that draws them in to listen to your podcast. And once you get people listening, then they will tell other people about it. Also, social media, you have to, now the jury's out on that because I just talked to one of my colleagues on the meetup, and he said, "Oh, I do everything on social media, but I'm kind of tired of social media. I think there's other ways to get the word out about your podcast. I think you can do print media." I get a lot of success on LinkedIn. So I'm running this meetup group with Stacy Sherman and Mark Ronick about podcasting. And I've been posting on LinkedIn and using Eventbrite because it's an event. And that brings a lot of people to this meetup group. So the other thing you can do around your podcast, which I have seen people do very successfully, is have an event related to your podcast. And one tool that is often overlooked that I'm finding to be very powerful with what we're doing is Eventbrite. So if you have an event, and we do advertising on Eventbrite, but we had almost 500 people sign up for our meetup the last time. They didn't all show up, it was on Zoom, it was remote, but almost all of those came through Eventbrite advertising. And I'm not trying to push Eventbrite. I'm not getting paid to say this, right? But there are so many tricks and tips that you can use to get your podcast out there marketing wise. And there are people that specialize in this. And it is a little different than traditional marketing because people have to go find the podcast. You have to get to the people that listen to podcasts, etc. But if you can get to an influencer, as you were speaking about before, with your podcast, they can talk about your podcast. And I think if you have a podcast, if you're a business person, you need to be posting in your own words, at least on LinkedIn or somewhere like that. I know Gary Vaynerchuk is a big proponent of LinkedIn, and I have to agree with him. I don't know if everybody knows who that is, but he's a big name in the entrepreneurial world here in
Right.
the States, right?
Right.
And I have to agree with him. So I make all my own art that I put on LinkedIn. I do it in Canva. And I do a LinkedIn post every day. And I'm getting more and more connections. Through that, my husband and I got invited to be on a TV show. And got that client, as I had said earlier. So there are a lot of different ways to market. The other thing I will say is podcasting has not reached its apex yet, the height of where it will be. And a lot of stuff is still just kind of trial and error. And YouTube too. YouTube now has where you can do A/B testing with different cover art, different thumbnails for your YouTube videos. But yeah, we could talk for a week about marketing, AJ.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One last question, Elizabeth, is that podcasting is a tool, it's a medium. And businesses sometimes, can get a bit more, ambitious in terms of expectations. How would you like to tell businesses they should look at expectations from, using podcast marketing or owning a podcast? Should they be very, very ambitious, or should they look at it just one tool which can do so much work for them?
Yes, I think they need to look at it as one tool. And I really feel like, AJ, you're doing video here, and that's wonderful. I feel like you have to be on YouTube with your podcast. And then what YouTube has amazing analytics. So you can actually, if you're doing a podcast for a business and they want to say, well, did anybody watch our podcast on YouTube or listen to it on the podcast sites? The podcast sites have analytics, and there are other software programs you can look at the marketing analytics for. But I think there's a huge benefit to YouTube, not with exposure and also with the analytics. So I would tell them, don't expect for your podcast to rocket to the top of the charts immediately, right? You have to work at it. You have to be consistent. You have to do it every month, every week, every 2 weeks, whatever your schedule is. For I don't know, a year or two. It's like starting a new business in some ways. A new business doesn't make a profit the first week you're in business, or if it does, then you have to feed that profit back in. But it takes time and consistency, and also good content, and it will grow. And if you're finding that it's not, then you need to make changes.
Absolutely. You need to make changes. There is a lot to learn from you, Elizabeth, about podcast marketing, about everything related to podcast. Uh, I'm sure a lot of people would like to learn more about all these things from you. So, what is the best way for them to do so? And also about your podcast studio, which is coming up soon, as you said earlier in the show.
Yes, well, the email I check most right now is Elizabeth with a Z at gearhartlaw.com. And we will be talking more about copyright issues in the meetup. We'll be talking more about copyright issues with the artwork that you're using. So can you take somebody else's picture and put it on your artwork? Not necessarily. There could be copyright issues. So uh, it is tied in with what we're doing at the law firm. So Elizabeth at gearhartlaw.com is best place.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.